Some of you are bleeding in silence. You smile on the outside, but you are at war within yourself. The world applauds your strength, but they don't see the sleepless nights, the silent tears, the battles you don't post on social media. Here's the truth. Sometimes the hardest person to forgive is not them, it's you. But hear me, God did not create you to be your own enemy. He called you to be your own ally. Today, I came to remind you, it's time to master self-compassion in the middle of your unseen battles. Impact. Audience leans in, emotionally grabbed, already identifying with their pain. Self-compassion is not weakness, it's warfare. People think that when you go easy on yourself, when you forgive yourself, when you extend grace to your own brokenness, you are being weak. But weakness is not in loving yourself. Weakness is in letting the enemy drag you into shame, guilt, and self-hatred until you can't move forward. To wake up every morning after failure and still tell yourself, I'm worthy of another chance, is not weakness, it's warfare. Because you are fighting against the voice that says you're not enough. The whispers that tell you you'll never recover. The lies that echo from your past that want to convince you that you are disqualified. When a soldier goes into battle, he doesn't go in unprotected. He straps on his armor. He knows arrows are coming, bullets are flying, and traps are set. And in this life, your soul is the battlefield. Your thoughts are the bullets. Your past is the arrow. Your regrets are the landmines. If you walk in without self-compassion, you are walking in naked. You are allowing every dart of shame to pierce you, every mistake to crush you, every memory to defeat you. But when you choose compassion, you lift your shield, you block the blow. You say, yes, I've made mistakes. I'm still standing. Yes, I have scars, but I am still here. That is not weakness, that is spiritual warfare. Think about the single mother who looks in the mirror after a long day. She's been judged for not doing enough, blamed for what she couldn't provide, criticized for the choices she had to make. But instead of condemning herself, she whispers, I did the best I could today. That whisper is warfare. That whisper is stronger than a shout because it shuts down the enemy's accusations. Or think about the businessman who failed in his first company. Everyone walked away. He lost money, credibility, and confidence. And the voice in his head said, you're done. But he chose to wake up, stand up, and try again. That choice to believe in his own value was warfare. Every step forward said to shame, you will not bury me here. It's the student who failed an exam and felt like a failure in life. The tears fall, the shame rises, the comparisons scream. But instead of letting failure define them, they say, I am more than a grade. I am more than a number. I am more than one bad day. That declaration is not weakness. It is the sound of battle being fought in the soul. It's the woman who looks at her body, scared from surgery, changed from motherhood, stretched from years of carrying weight. Society tells her she's not enough. But she stands in the mirror and says, this body is the proof that I survived. This body is the temple God gave me. That moment of affirmation is warfare because she refuses to bow down to culture's lies. Self-compassion is the refusal to let shame have the last word. It is not about making excuses. It's about making room for healing because you cannot heal what you constantly attack. If a wound is constantly reopened, never closes, and many of you are bleeding not because of what others said about you, but because of what you keep saying about yourself. Every time you say, I'm stupid, I'm worthless, I'll never be loved, you are cutting into your own soul. But when you learn to say, I'm still learning, I'm still growing, I'm still chosen, you are stitching the wound. You are waging war against destruction with the threat of compassion. Picture a soldier who falls on the battlefield. He is wounded. He doesn't need another soldier to stab him. He needs someone to bind the wound. That's what you must do for yourself. Stop stabbing yourself with your own words. Stop shooting arrows into your own heart. Start bandaging yourself with grace, speaking life over your own pain. That is not weakness. It is the courage to heal in the middle of war. Everyday life is full of battles we don't see. The woman at the grocery store holding her head high while she counts every penny, ashamed of what she cannot afford. She's fighting a war. The man in the office smiling at everyone but going home to depression. He's fighting a war. Teenagers scrolling on social media, comparing, hating themselves silently, fighting a war. Mother grieving a child but still cooking for her family, fighting a war. And in every case, compassion toward themselves is not a luxury, it is a weapon. If you've ever carried guilt so heavy it almost broke your back, you know what warfare feels like. If you've ever replayed a mistake 1,000 times in your mind, you know what captivity feels like. And the only key that unlocks that prison is compassion. To forgive yourself is to fight for your future. To love yourself when you feel unlovable is to wrestle shame into silence. To stand in the middle of your brokenness and say, I am still worthy of God's love, is to plant your flag on the battlefield of your mind and declare, I will not surrender to shame. So don't let anyone tell you that being kind to yourself makes you soft. Don't let anyone mock your healing process as weakness. Because every time you choose self-compassion, you are lifting a sword against shame. You are lifting a shield against guilt, and you are fighting a war that most people will never see, but heaven always honors. You can't heal what you keep hating. You can't move forward if every time you look at yourself, you attack yourself. Healing doesn't happen in an atmosphere of hate. Healing requires compassion, patience, and grace. A wound that you keep poking never closes. A scar you keep scratching never fades. And some of you are not broken because of what they did to you. You are broken because of what you keep doing to yourself. You rehearse your failures. You replay your mistakes. You relive the shame, and you wonder why you still bleed. But you cannot heal what you keep hating. Think about the person who looks into the mirror every morning and sees only their flaws. They hate their body, their reflection, their shape, their skin, their hair. Every word they speak over themselves is poisoned with hate, and yet they pray for confidence. They ask God for peace. They want to be whole. How can wholeness come when the soil is poisoned with self-hatred? That mirror doesn't need another insult. It needs affirmation. Body doesn't need more criticism. It needs appreciation. When that person shifts from, I hate what I see, to, I thank God for the vessel he gave me, healing begins. It's like a gardener trying to nurture a plant, but pouring acid instead of water. No matter how much sunlight shines, no matter how good the soil is, plant cannot grow because the gardener is destroying it. That's what happens when you keep feeding your soul with hate. You are the gardener of your own life. If you want growth, you must pour love, not poison. If you want healing, you must water yourself with kindness. You cannot grow what you despise. Think about relationships. A young woman broken from her past keeps saying, I'll never be enough, I'll never be loved, I'll never be worthy. And every time someone comes close, she pushes them away because she's already declared herself unworthy. The problem isn't that love isn't available. The problem is she keeps hating herself too much to receive it. Until she shifts that language, till she tells herself, I am valuable, I am lovable, I am worthy, she will always sabotage the very thing she craves. Healing comes not when she hates herself less, but when she loves herself enough to open the door. Or think about the man who failed in business. Every time he looks at his past, he says, I'm a failure, I'll never succeed. He hates the mistakes he made, he hates the risks he took. He hates the version of himself that stumbled. And yet, those mistakes are his greatest teachers. Those failures are his training ground. If he keeps hating them, he'll never learn from them. But if he begins to honor them as part of his growth, suddenly the very thing that shamed him becomes the very thing that shapes him. Healing doesn't come by cursing the past, but by blessing the lesson. You can't heal what you keep hating because hate keeps you bound to the wound. It ties you to the pain. Every time you speak hate, you're rehearsing the trauma. Imagine someone with a broken leg. The doctor puts a cast on it, but every day that person beats the cast with a hammer. How will the bone ever heal? That's what many people do with their hearts. God has wrapped you in grace, but you keep hitting yourself with condemnation. No wonder the bone of your soul never mends. Healing requires rest, gentleness, patience, and above all, love. Look at a child learning to walk. They fall again and again, but no parent screams at them for stumbling. The parent claps, encourages, cheers. Get up. Try again. But when you stumble in life, you don't cheer for yourself. You curse yourself. You call yourself names. You declare yourself unworthy. That's why you stay on the ground so long. You don't need more hate. You need encouragement. You don't need more condemnation. You need compassion. Because no child learns to walk in an atmosphere of ridicule, and no soul learns to heal in an atmosphere of hate. Think about grief. A woman loses someone she loves, but instead of giving herself grace to grieve, she says, I should be stronger by now. I should be over this. She hates the tears, she hates the sadness, she hates the weakness. But grief cannot heal under pressure. Healing comes when she says, it's okay to cry, it's okay to hurt, it's okay to feel. By allowing herself to be human, she allows the heart to knit itself back together. Hate doesn't speed healing, it stops it. It's the same with mistakes. A man who cheated on his diet one day looks in the mirror and says, I'll never lose weight, I'm worthless. He hates himself for one slip and then spirals back into old habits. But another man says, I slipped today, tomorrow I'll rise again. That second man will heal, will grow, will change, not because he was perfect, but because he showed himself grace. You can't heal what you keep hating because hate freezes you in the moment of failure. Hate keeps pressing rewind on yesterday. Love presses play on tomorrow. Hate keeps dragging you back. Compassion pushes you forward. Every scar on your life is waiting to tell a story, but as long as you hate it, you silence its testimony. Healing only comes when you look at the scar and say, I survived. I am still here. This scar does not disqualify me. It proves I endured. That shift turns wounds into wisdom and pain into power. Silent battles demand sacred grace. The battles nobody sees, the wars that don't make it to social media, struggles that don't get applause or sympathy, those are the battles that weigh the heaviest. Everyone can clap for you when you win in public, but who prays for you when you're bleeding in private? The silent battle is the hardest because it doesn't always come with encouragement, doesn't always come with understanding, and it doesn't always come with help. That is why silent battles demand sacred grace. Grace that is deep, grace that is divine, grace that doesn't need an audience to validate it. There are people who smile at work but cry in the car on the way home. They laugh in public, but they collapse on the floor in private. They answer, I'm fine when asked, but inside they are crumbling. That's a silent battle. It's the mother who tucks her children in at night and then sits in the kitchen staring at unpaid bills. She never tells her kids about the fear that haunts her because she doesn't want them to carry her burden. But when she whispers, Lord, just give me strength for another day, that's sacred grace. That grace doesn't come from man's applause. It comes from heaven's embrace. It's the young man who looks confident among his friends, but goes home and wrestles with depression. He doesn't post about it. He doesn't talk about it because he doesn't want to look weak. He wears a mask so convincing that nobody suspects he's barely holding on. And in the midnight hour, when he lays on his bed staring at the ceiling, he feels the weight of his silent battle pressing on his chest. What he needs is not more pressure to perform, not more judgment from others, but sacred grace that whispers, even in your darkest night, you are not alone. Silent battles show up in marriages too. Couples smiling in church, holding hands in public, but at home they're drifting apart. Nobody knows the arguments, the silence at the dinner table, cold distance in the bedroom. They carry the pain in silence because they don't want anyone to think their picture-perfect life is cracked. In the silence of that tension, they need grace, the grace to forgive, the grace to try again, the grace to speak love where only bitterness has been spoken. That's sacred grace, the kind that doesn't just keep the marriage alive, but makes it stronger. There are silent battles in health. A woman battling cancer, but telling everyone, I'm okay. The man living with chronic pain, but refusing to complain because he doesn't want to be pitied. The teenager fighting anxiety attacks in silence because they don't want to be judged. These battles demand sacred grace. The grace to endure when your body feels like it's betraying you. The grace to smile through tears. The grace to wake up another day even when your strength is gone. Sacred grace says you don't have to explain your pain for it to be valid. I see you. With you, silent battles happen in faith too. The preacher who preaches powerfully but wrestles with doubt behind closed doors. The worship leader who leads songs on Sunday but feels empty on Monday. The believer who testifies boldly but secretly wonders if God still hears their prayers. Those silent faith battles are real and they demand sacred grace, because it's not the strength of your performance that sustains you, it's the depth of God's grace. Sacred grace says, even when you doubt, I'll hold you. Even when you question, I'll love you. Even when your faith is small, my grace is sufficient. Silent battles also live in success. People think that the higher you go, the easier life becomes. But some of the most successful people cry the loudest tears in silence. The CEO who provides for hundreds of employees but goes home to an empty house. The athlete cheered by thousands but crippled by loneliness. The artist praised by millions but drowning in insecurity. They can't tell the world because the world assumes success means happiness. In those moments of silence, they need sacred grace, the grace that reminds them that worth is not tied to applause, the grace that whispers identity louder than insecurity. You see, grace in silent battles is not optional, it is survival. Because silent battles drain you differently. They don't just exhaust your body, they deplete your soul, and you can't fight them with willpower alone. You can't fight them with masks, with performance, with denial. Silent battles require something greater, something higher, something sacred. Grace that comes when you feel unworthy. Grace that shows up when you're too tired to pray. Grace that holds you when no one else even knows you're slipping. That's why sacred grace is not just a word, it's oxygen. It's what keeps people breathing when they should have quit. It's what keeps them walking when care enough it should have collapsed. It's what keeps them smiling when they should have given up. Sacred grace doesn't need a spotlight to work. It moves in the shadows. It heals in the silence. It strengthens in the unseen. When you're fighting a battle nobody knows about, you realize that the greatest gift you can ever receive is not sympathy from man, but sacred grace from God. You can't be who God called you to be while being your own enemy. You can't walk into destiny if you're tripping over your own criticism. You can't embrace the promise if you're still chained by your own doubt. The loudest enemy is not always the one on the outside. It's the voice on the inside. That inner voice that whispers, "You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not strong enough." That voice becomes a prison guard, locking you out of your own future. And the truth is, many people never lose to others, they lose to themselves. You can't step into what God designed if you spend every day disqualifying yourself. Think about David standing before Goliath. The giant was already terrifying, but imagine if David had been his own enemy. Imagine if he had said, "I'm too small, I'm too young, I don't belong here." The battle would have been lost before the stone ever left his sling. The giant wasn't just outside of him, it could have been inside of him. And that's where most of us fall. We defeat ourselves before the battle even begins. God can call you, anoint you, equip you. But if you are at war with yourself, you'll never step into the field. Consider the student who wants to become a doctor. She studies late, sacrifices sleep, and carries dreams bigger than her present circumstances. Every time she faces a challenge, she says to herself, "I can't do this. I'm not smart enough." She sabotages her own potential because the opportunity isn't there, but because she is her own enemy. The enemy is not her professors, not her exams, not her lack of ability. The enemy is her own voice. The moment she stops fighting herself, the moment she says, "I am capable, I am worthy, I am chosen for this path," she opens the door to what God has called her to do. It's like an athlete training for the Olympics. He has the skill, the coach, the resources. But every time he looks in the mirror, he says, "I'll never be the best, good enough to win." He's fighting a battle against himself. His biggest competitor isn't the runner in the next lane, it's the self-doubt in his own mind. You can't be who God called you to be if you keep tripping over your own insecurity. At some point, you must silence the critic within and let the calling speak louder. You see it in everyday life. A woman who survived a divorce and now feels unworthy of love. Every time someone tries to care for her, she rejects it, not because love isn't available, but because she's convinced herself she doesn't deserve it. She's fighting against her own healing, her own restoration. She cannot walk into the new life God has for her until she stops being her own enemy. When she shifts her language from "I'm broken" to "I'm becoming whole," from "I'm unlovable" to "I am worthy of love," she moves from prison to promise. Or look at the man who grew up in poverty. He gets a good job, starts to build a life, but deep down he still believes he's less than everyone else. He second guesses himself in meetings. He avoids opportunities. He hides his voice because he doesn't think it matters. The company sees potential. He can't see it in himself. He becomes his own ceiling, his own obstacle, his own enemy. The moment he accepts, "God called me to be here. I belong in this room. My voice matters," everything shifts. He rises not because the world changed, but because he stopped fighting himself. Sometimes being your own enemy shows up in how you replay mistakes. You keep going back to that one failure, that one regret, that one moment you wish you could erase. And every time you think about the future, that mistake drags you back into the past. You keep punishing yourself for something God has already forgiven. How can you be who God called you to be if you're stuck rehearsing who you used to be? Destiny cannot grow in the soil of self-hatred. You've got to give yourself permission to move on, to release the past, to walk into new seasons. Even in ministry, it happens. A preacher may have the calling, the gift, the anointing, but he doubts himself so much that he never fully steps into it. He compares himself to others. He criticizes his own voice. He belittles his own message. And the people who needed his words, souls waiting for his testimony, are left hungry because he was his own enemy. The calling is bigger than your insecurity, but you'll never live it out if you keep fighting yourself. Being your own enemy looks like rejecting compliments, downplaying your talents, silencing your dreams before they even breathe. It's like walking into a room where the door was already open, but you chain yourself to the wall. God didn't call you to live in chains. He called you to walk in freedom. He didn't create you to be in conflict with yourself. He created you to be in alignment with his will. You can't be who he designed if you keep tearing yourself down. The destiny he prepared cannot be carried by a person who refuses to carry themselves with grace. Every assignment requires agreement. God can call you. If you don't agree with him about who you are, you will sabotage your own calling. Moses argued with God saying, "I can't speak." Gideon argued with God saying, "I am the least." Jeremiah argued with God saying, "I am too young," and in every case, reminded them, don't fight me by fighting yourself. Because heaven's plans require earth's cooperation. You cannot embrace the fullness of your destiny while waging war against your own worth. The greatest breakthrough happens not when your enemies on the outside are silenced, but when the enemy on the inside is defeated. When you finally stop tearing yourself apart. When you finally stop doubting your own worth, when you finally stop belittling what God has placed inside you, because you can't be who God called you to be while being your own enemy. Life will always whisper to you that you are not enough. Destiny shouts louder that you are chosen. You have cried silent tears, fought hidden wars, carried invisible weights, and yet you are still standing. That alone is proof that there is more inside of you than you realize. Do not let your wounds lie to you. Do not let your failures define you. Do not let your mistakes write your final chapter. You are not the sum total of your regrets. You are the living evidence of resilience. Every scar on your body, every tear you ever cried, every disappointment you survived is the signature of survival written across your life. You must understand that the same God who created the galaxies placed greatness inside of you. The same God who hung the stars by his word and poured the oceans with his hands put purpose in your spirit. Do not shrink from it. Do not sabotage it. Do not silence it. There will always be voices that say you cannot, but you must declare, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." There will always be people who doubt you, but you must rise and say, "Greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world." There will always be giants in front of you, You must remember that giants are not meant to terrify you. They are meant to testify of your strength. You cannot keep fighting yourself and expect to win the battle of life. You cannot stand at war with your own identity and expect to walk in destiny. Stop being your own critic and start being your own coach. Stop being your own enemy and start being your own ally. When the world turns against you, let your own voice fight for you. When doubt rises, let your faith shout louder. When failure comes, let your courage stand taller. Because the greatest battles are not won with fists or swords. They are won with faith, with resilience, with the audacity to believe in yourself when nobody else does. The time has come to rewrite the language of your life. More, I can't, but I will. No more, I'm broken, but I'm healing. No more, I'm not enough, but I am chosen. Speak over yourself the words you've been waiting to hear. Become your own encourager, your own cheerleader, your own witness of the power of grace. Because if you don't speak life over yourself, you will allow death to creep into your dreams. And you were not born to let your dreams die. You were born to let them breathe. There is power in rising when the world expects you to fall. There is glory in standing when the weight should have crushed you. There is beauty in becoming whole when everyone thought you would stay broken. Your story is not just about you. It is about everyone who will see you rise and realize that they can rise too. You are not just surviving for yourself. You are paving the way for someone else's healing. You are the proof that darkness cannot drown light, that weakness cannot overcome strength, hate cannot silence love. So lift your head, wipe your tears, square your shoulders, and step into the life that was written for you before time began. You are stronger than your scars, greater than your grief, more powerful than your pain. Do not wait for permission to be great. You were already authorized when God breathed life into you. Do not wait for validation from others. The Creator Himself validated you when He called you His own. This is the moment to declare war on your doubt and peace with your own soul. This is the season to stop fighting yourself and start fighting for yourself. This is the hour to rise, not as a victim of life, but as a victor over it. Remember these words, lions don't lose sleep over the opinion of sheep. Eagles don't apologize for soaring, and champions are not defined by how many times they fall, but by how many times they rise. You have fallen, yes, but you have risen. You have been wounded, yes, but you are still alive. And if you are still breathing, that means heaven is not finished with you yet.